So as everyone can see today, April 6th, we're going to complete chapter 21. Now, last Sunday, you may recall that we went into the chapter in great detail. We divided it up into different sections. We looked at each section very carefully, and we looked at it line by line, in some cases character by character, and then we delved into the meaning of those characters. So that's usually what happens in the first half of our discussion. In the second half, which is today's discussion, our focus is not on the lines, the section, the structure, but our focus is on the meaning and also the application of the meaning. How can we use it? You know, how can it be powerful? How can it be something that helps us in life? So that's what today is all about, which is why I say that I believe today's meeting is actually one of the most important and also one of the most useful. So I'm very much looking forward to that. Next Sunday, April 13th, you can see that we have a spring ritual short meeting. So that's going to be so basically the meeting, instead of 2 hours, will be less than 1 hour, like 45 minutes. So I'll be utilizing that 45 minutes to get caught up on questions that I haven't answered and material from today that I can't quite get to. And then I would also talk about the I-kuan Training Center Shrine opening on April 13th. So we have a confirmed date now. The I-kuan Training Center is in Valencia. So if you are in Southern California, if you are not that far away, I would like to invite you to go there. The shrine opening ceremony is going to be in the afternoon, starting at about 3 p.m. I will be giving a talk there. In fact, let me come back to I-kuan in just a moment. There's a couple more things that are important about that training center that I will discuss. But for now, let me just kind of finish talking about the schedule. In April, right after the short meeting, we have a Dao conference for Dao initiates here at the temple, and therefore no online meeting for that particular Sunday. And for that one, those of you who are in Southern California, I want to make sure you know that the proceedings will all be translated from Chinese to English, so you won't be lost. Even though a lot of the talks will be delivered in Chinese, they will be translated. So everyone who has gone through initiation is invited to attend. Those who get initiated at the shrine opening ceremony next Sunday will also be invited to attend. Now, it will be necessary to register for the Dao conference. So if you are planning on attending, definitely let me know. Contact me, by email, or just type out type out your email address for me in the question section, and I can go about coordinating the registration for you. Following the Dao conference, we have a couple of weekends that we can use for Dao De Jing chapter 22, and then after that we have another break. We have Mother's Day coming up in May, and therefore we won't be having an online meeting that day. So want to make sure everyone is aware. All right, so I'm going to circle back to the I-kuan Center for just a moment. So this is again for April 13th. You can find the website at www.I-kuan.net. I-kuan itself, it is Sanskrit for unity or oneness, which happens to have interesting relevance to today's talk. Today's talk will be focusing on the one thing. When it comes to the Tao, what is that one thing? What is that one thing for you in your life? What is that one thing to focus on today? So all of that, the one. I-kuan, unity, oneness, it is named that way. I was the person who provided the name initially. It is named that way to invoke the deeper truths of martial arts and physical training, that these are all vehicles toward walking the path and attaining oneness. So that image that you see there You will see it, if you were to go to the Ekata Center, you will see it again. There's a giant version of it on one particular wall. Very interesting place, I think, to visit. It's in Valencia, as I mentioned, and address is at the website. So I will circle back on oneness and the one in just a moment. And next time, I can also talk a little bit more about the introductory material that I intend to cover when I'm physically at the Ekata Training Center. For now, though, we should be focusing on the one thing, which is the Tao Te Ching, specifically chapter 21. So what we did last time was that we divided this up into sections, and here are the divisions. You will see the introductory section consisting of 4 lines, and then we have a descriptive section, the center portion, sort of the main part of this particular chapter from line 5 to line 12, and then we have a concluding section from 13 to 17. So this is how we divide it up. Now, what I would like to do, the important thing for me to do, is to make sure that the meaning is conveyed from this particular chapter, and then focus on the one thing that is the most important thing, which is at the very end. Okay? So that is the plan. The way that I will go about conveying the meaning of this entire chapter is to take you through, from beginning to end, a paraphrase of what this chapter says. So the paraphrase, what I presented previously, section by section, right next to the very literal translation, and also character by character breakdown of the meaning. So here's what that paraphrasing, that interpretation, here's how it goes. Whenever those who possess great virtue appear, they always follow the Tao, and only the Tao. What is this mysterious thing called the Tao that they follow? It seems vague and unclear. When we look deeper into it, we see that, and on every slide, the interpretation follows closely the original Chinese in the translation. Okay? Now, we see that it is so unclear and indistinct, but we can sense within it the patterns that underlie all of existence. We cannot see anything in it clearly, but we can sense within it the potential substance of everything. The Tao is so deep that we cannot fully perceive its infinite depths, and yet we can sense within it an ultimate essence. This essence is quite real, not something we imagine. We believe in its reality through observation and reasoning. From the distant past to the present time, the Tao has always been the Tao. It has always been there, and it has always been the source of continuous, universal creation. How do I know all this? How can I be so sure? I know it with total certainty because my mind, my perceptions, my thoughts is the Tao within me. So I'm going to pause for a moment to let that sink in a little bit. Now, to continue with this, I want to draw your attention to the very last line. The very last line, as you can see, has only 2 Chinese characters, and it's translated into 2 English words, with this. Okay? So if you imagine that we are now speaking with Lao Tzu, you know, the historical person Lao Tzu, and he says, how do I know? With this. Imagine that he is pointing at something with one finger, you know, this. You know, he's pointing it at it, showing the one thing. So I want to talk about this. In this particular interpretation, and also in the translation, our discussion from last week, you have heard a couple of different ways to think about this. You can think about this as simply the Tao. How do I know about the Tao? With the Tao. Okay, that's one way to approach it. Another way is what you see here on this particular slide. If you look at the last paragraph there at the bottom of the slide, how do I know this? Well, my mind, my consciousness is the Tao within me. So you're not quite saying, I know the Tao with the Tao, but you're saying that, well, within my mind is a direct connection to the Tao. I am the Tao is me, I'm in the Tao is within me, etc. So that equivalence, that connection, that association is how you can know with this. Okay? Now, I want to give you yet another way to look at it, and these are all the same thing. These are all one and the same, but we keep uncovering different ways of looking at it to gain greater understanding. So when I say with this, I'd like you to think of the one thing, with this one thing. Now, it kind of makes sense in a way. Let me demonstrate why. Well, back to the translation again. I want you to take a look at this particular chapter from the end to the beginning, like backwards, but picking out just the highlights. And then we'll do that a couple of times, front and back to front, etc. So at the very end, we have with this. And then what I've done is that I've highlighted in red all the things that are significant, like what is at the end of a couplet, what is at the end of a section. So those will give you clues as to the ultimate meaning, the perfect understanding of this particular chapter. So starts out with indistinct, unclear. That's just basically a statement of the issue before us, that the Tao is so mysterious. How do we understand it better? That's just a statement of the problem that we want to solve. Then we talk about the patterns within it. Image, in this case, is another way to describe pattern. I find it very interesting that the Tao seems to be reflected everywhere, even in our modern times. If you understand how our current technology is derived, it's literally, if you understand how chips, computer chips are made, it's actually an image. It's actually like, it's sort of like photocopying, lithography. An image is projected onto silicon, and then those circuits are formed. Tiny traces, semiconductor. It's like that. It's an image, and yet it's a pattern. It's a pattern of circuitry that allows the logic, the programming, to flow through in the computer's memory. So very interesting correspondence. I'm sure not exactly foreseen by the ancient Chinese, but we see the Tao everywhere. I see it there. So within the vagueness of the Tao, there's substance, and this is just the potential for all things to come to be, for all things to take on a substantial form in the material world. So within you, this will be ideas. I have an idea that I can come up with a new product. I have an idea that I can come up with a service, a new offering. I have an idea for a poem. I have an idea I can paint this particular painting. There's an image in my mind that I want to draw. So these are all ideas that eventually take form in the material world. So that's the Tao within you, and that's similar to the Tao of creation within the cosmos. And then there's essence, and then there's faith. So if you go from the back to the beginning, with this one thing, what is that one thing? Well, I have this one thing, and this one thing is the essence of all, the essence of creation, the essence of everything. And that one thing has the potential to create everything else, and the one thing is the pattern that everything takes after. So we start out with what is pretty vague, but as we move down, we see the patterns, we see the potential of creation, we see the essence. It becomes clearer and clearer. It comes into sharper focus until at the very, very end, it is as sharp as it can be with this. It is very definitive. It is very clear. The vagueness has turned into sharper focus of the one thing. And this is where I want to use examples and illustrations to explain concepts that are very abstract. So here's my example, and you guys know that oftentimes I use examples that are like, stories from ancient times, but then sometimes I take the opposite path. I take examples from pop culture, from modern times, stories from people who live in the same era as ourselves. So today is one such example. So to prepare you for that, I want to prepare you for the illustration, the example, I want to bring you to these two. When you focus on those individual lines, you gain this particular way to very simply understand the entire chapter beginning to end. So this is a distillation. This is what happens when you boil down the interpretations that you saw that spanned over multiple slides. If we were to reach for an even more concise way to express everything, you're going to have this, and this is, you can see this is simply turning all the lines you read into a summary form for the entire chapter. The Tao is mysterious. Within it, there is the pattern for all of existence. Within it, there is the potential for all of creation. Within it, there is the ultimate essence. Within it, there is what I believe. How can I be so sure about this Tao with this one thing? Okay, so we've boiled this down to that very last line with this one thing. Now we want to know what that one thing is. At least I hope that's where everybody is going now. I've built this up to that one last line, to the very one last thing, and hopefully engender within you a curiosity as to what that one thing is. So here's that one thing. So what you're looking at is the actor Jack Palance. He's holding up one finger. This is a still from a movie. The name of the movie is City Slickers, starring not just Jack Palance, but also Billy Crystal. Okay, now I realize not everyone has seen this movie before, so let me explain the connection between Jack Palance's finger, holding up a finger, and the one thing. So for those of you who are present, how many people have seen that movie? Probably not many. Okay, so you guys that are listening in online, if you have seen it, let me know. Oh, thank you, Alex. Great. I'm not the only one who has seen it. Oh, okay, there you go, Tim. Thank you. All right, so those of you who have seen it, you know what the movie is about. Those who haven't, here's the high-level summary of the movie. Billy Crystal is a 39-year-old city slicker, quote-unquote city slicker. He's like an urban dweller. He's a professional, middle-aged man, 39 years old. He's not a particularly happy guy. Like so many people that you know, so many people around you, and maybe even yourself, this middle-aged man is undergoing some sort of a middle-age crisis. That is, his relationships are not panning out so well. He's married, but his marriage is not a happy marriage. He's unsatisfied with his work, with his job, with his life in general. So he decides to take a break. He takes a vacation. He goes to a ranch to get away from the city. So, for the people at the ranch, these tourists from the city are the city slickers. So there they encounter this very rugged cowboy, Jack Palance, who's been a cowboy all his life. He's very deeply connected with nature. He sees life in dramatically different ways from the city dwellers, the urban dwellers. He's very direct, down to earth. And as they interact with one another, he has opportunities to dispense some of the things that he has learned directly from nature. And these prove to be perspectives that are very helpful to the people from the city. So that, in a nutshell. I haven't really given away anything about the movie. So if you are curious, I encourage you to see it. But this one scene from the movie is what I want to use to talk about the one thing. So in this particular scene, Billy Crystal and Jack Palance, the two actors, in the movie, they are, Billy Crystal is Mitch, the middle-aged dude, 39 years old, and Jack Palance is Curly, the cowboy. So they're riding together, they're on horseback, they're riding together, just slowly, just trotting along, and they're talking about life. And they're talking about, so Billy Crystal's character is, Mitch is expressing, he's starting to let it out, that he's not altogether happy. So at one point in the conversation, Curly, the cowboy, says, "You want to know what the secret is? The secret about life." And Mitch is like, yeah, well, what's the secret? Yeah, I want to know. So this scene shows up. Jack Palance holds up one finger and says, "This." And Mitch is like, "What, your finger? That's the secret of life?" And Curly says, no, this is the one thing. This is the one thing that if you were to get it, nothing else in life matters all that much. If you understand it, if you hold on to it, if you figure that out, then that's it. That's one thing is the secret to life. So Mitch, middle-aged guy from the city, is like, well, okay, what is that one thing? And then Curly the cowboy smiles and says, "That's what you have to find out." Okay, so he's talking about something that is very Tao-centric, without necessarily calling it Tao. He's talking about something about life that's very Tao-centric, and that is the secret, the quote-unquote secret, not really a secret, but the secret of life is simple. It is not easy, but it is simple. It can be very difficult, but it is not complex. And it can be very simple because it is the one thing. Okay, now, one thing, so what is that? Well, there's the Tao, the one thing that is a Tao. There's the path, that's the one thing. There's the concept of oneness and unity. So these are big abstract concepts. Now I want to bring it down to life for you to talk about the one thing for you. What is that one thing for you? Now remember, we are all of us from the Tao. We are born of the Tao. We are children of the Tao, the path, the way, the universal way of existence, and therefore we're all connected to that. The oneness that is the Tao is reflected within us as the oneness for ourselves. And in ourselves, it is also reflected in different levels, in different ways. Let me explain. So, to help me explain, first I want to bring in one particular author. His name is Phil. Phil Cook is his name. He's a successful television and movie producer. And then later on, he also went into becoming an author and speaking and so forth. So his whole life has been obsessed about this one thing. So when he wrote a book about it, he quotes that scene from the movie City Slickers, the one thing. And the question that he's always asking everybody, wherever he gets invited to speak, because there's a lot of people that want to hear him speak. He's a successful Hollywood movie and television producer. They want to hear him talk about success and stuff like that. So he gets invited to speak, and rather than to talk about success, material success, he only wants to talk about life. And here's what he asks. He's always asking this question: what could you be the best at doing? Where do you stand out? What area of life are you most proud of? Where could you be remarkable? And here's another way that he'll phrase it. What is your one big thing? What is the one big thing for you in life? So no matter who he comes across, he's always asking this question, whether he's giving a speech or having just a conversation. And then people will come to him and say, well, I need some help finding the one thing for me. I need to figure it out. I need you to give me a direction so I can figure it out for myself. Now, so Phil is very much in demand. He talks about, there's a couple of things that he talks about that'll help us figure out this question. And this is why I say this, our talk today is very important. So number one, he says, it doesn't really matter what level of worldly success you have attained. It is no guarantee that you have located, that you have understood the one thing for you in life. To illustrate, he talks about a couple of real-life examples, his own real-life example, that one day he's sharing a cab with the CEO of a very large company. It's a large company, very large and successful company for medical supplies. So this CEO in his mid-50s, a very successful guy by every conventional measure one can imagine. So they're talking, and Phil is asking the CEO this one question. What could you be best at doing? You know, what are you most proud of? Where could you be remarkable? What is the one thing for you in life? And what Phil did not quite expect was that there was then a very uncomfortable silence, because the question hit a nerve. The CEO is thinking about it at length. And then finally, he spoke up and he said, well, you know, I have no idea. I went into this business, this company that I'm leading, on advice of my friends. And one of us came up with this medical device that became a bestseller. We all rose together. We all became successful together. Now I have this huge company. I make this very high income, you know, but I don't really know if this is what I am here to do. You know, is it fulfilling? No, not really. It just worked. And with that, he fell silent again and didn't talk for the rest of the cab ride, thinking about this, turning this over and over in his mind. This was something that he hadn't really considered. You know, he said, I don't know if this is what I was put on the face of this earth to accomplish. Running this company, I mean, it's okay. It's a good job. It's a high-paying job. But is this it for me? Is this the one thing? It's not. Okay? So that's someone from very close to an extreme end of the success spectrum, at least success as society defines it. So another example, also from Phil's life, is a childhood friend, someone he's known since high school, from his hometown. So he's known this friend all his life. So he knows that when, you know, their time together in high school was over, his friend was so excited to go to college, but he dropped out of college after just a couple of years because he lost interest. It wasn't interesting for him. He didn't know what he was meant to do. So he drifted from one thing to another. He got an idea later on that he wanted to become an actor. So he came to Hollywood as well, same as Phil. Now Phil went into producing television programs and movies, but he wanted to be an actor, and he was basically rejected at every turn, which by the way is not a big surprise. The great majority, 99% of the people here in Tinseltown, in Hollywood, that want to make it big, in the entertainment industry, 99% of them are just rejected every single day. And even people who are getting steady work, they face constant rejection, just so you know. The one example, just to kind of illustrate that, probably one of the most successful recent movies is Frozen. Is huge. It's like the biggest animated feature of all time. Worldwide, it's grossed over $1 billion, just over $1 billion. So everybody associated with it is now extremely successful. And frankly, every member of the cast is incredibly, incredibly talented. You know, some of them I knew as actors. I had no idea that they could sing, and at such a professional level. And not only do they sing in the movies, they sing live just to demonstrate, you know, their pipes, basically. So these cast members, these leads that are now extremely successful, well, they were turned down before. Two of them were previously turned down for another movie, and it was the auditioning tape, the recording from the auditioning session that led to their leading parts in Frozen. So that just underscores a reality that even when you have a very big resume, you know, with you in Hollywood, you're still rejected left and right. So it was the same for this author's friend, Phil's friend, was just getting rejected all the time, and decided to become a real estate agent. That didn't work out so well. Got married, but the constant stress of not knowing what he's meant to do in life took a toll on his relationship. So broke up that marriage as well. Today, he's working at a coffee shop. Every day, he is going through the newspaper, looking at the I-kuan ads, looking for opportunities, looking for ideas on how to get rich quick. That's his life. Now, he works very hard. This friend of Phil's, he's a hard worker. He's diligent. But he hasn't discovered the difference between his job and the one big thing in his life. So that's the meaning. That's one possible meaning of the one thing for you in your life. What is the one thing for you? Not easy to figure out. There is another meaning of the one thing, and that is when you zoom in even further. Now remember, we talked about the cosmic one thing, the Tao, the oneness of the universe, the oneness of creation, zooming down now to the personal level, talking about your life, the one thing in your life. What is that one thing? Now we're going to zoom in even further to just what happens from day to day, week to week. And to help me explain, here's another successful guy. Gary is his name. Gary is the co-founder of a very large company, very successful company. He's for him, he has realized what his one big thing is in life. His job is aligned with that one big thing. He loves what he does. His passion and his vocation are united. Now, it wasn't always this way. Before he became successful, he was leading this large company, and it had grown for a short time, but then it stagnated, and he was not able to break through, and it fell so far short of his ideal that he was despairing to ever be able to get back on track with his company. So he had a whole bunch of people that he worked with, and he kept trying to get them to do the things that would push the company forward. So he would have regular meetings with them, his senior executives. He's a company founder. He's got senior executives that he talks to all the time. So in every meeting, it was his custom to say, okay, so you know, what are the things that you are planning to accomplish before we meet again next week? And everybody would have a list of items. When next week comes around, what he would discover is that his people, his executives, they will get most of the things done, but not all. And the things that they do are not necessarily the things that make the most impact. So it became rather frustrating for Gary. So he thought about different ways to approach the problem, and finally he said to all of his people, okay, out of these things that you have to do, pick 3 things that you need to focus on before we meet again next week. Try that for a while, was about the same, okay? Wasn't getting it done, wasn't causing the company to break through. So then he said, well, okay guys, we're gonna do things a little bit differently. Instead of 3 things, I want you to pick only 2 things. Okay, things became a little better, but still not quite what he wanted it. And finally he said, all right, this is it, guys. If there's only one thing that you could do, that'll make a difference. That by doing it, you will cause everything else to either become easier or unnecessary. What is that one thing? What is that one thing that you can focus on? Now, when he did that, something magical happened. Things took off. The company expanded rapidly, bigger and better than it was before. The results went through the roof. And at that point, when Gary looked back at his experience, he saw a direct correspondence between the approach and the results. That is, whenever he had a very narrow focus, it led to a massive success. Whenever the focus was not so narrow, the success was much more moderate. Whenever the focus was generalized, vague, blurry, unfocused, then there would be no success. And having learned that one secret about success, about doing what you're meant to do and succeeding at it, he applied it repeatedly. Now, the company that he started out is the largest real estate company in the United States. So that's a powerful testimonial to the power of the one thing. Now, what he did, he didn't call it the Tao, but he followed the Tao. What he believed was that extraordinary results are directly determined by how narrow you can make your focus. So Lao Tzu said it in a different way. Lao Tzu said it in a way like, if you can't break, you have to break down a big thing into small things. And if you still can't have it, if you still can't accomplish that, you have to break it down into even smaller things. Smaller and smaller. The more narrow your focus, the better your results are going to be. So going small, what it means is ignoring all the things you could do and doing the things that you should do. So that's important. Do what you should do, not all the things that you could do. And it's the clarity of perception to recognize that not all things matter equally. Not everything is equal. There are things that matter more than others. And therefore, this is a tighter way to connect with what you do with what you want. So I want to give everyone this one example, and then we will summarize for the day. So if you get this one thing about life, then I've done my job. But if it's not clear, let me use an example. So I started out using a movie as our first example, City Slickers. Let me take from that to talk about something that you are really good at, something that you are very good at. You are an expert at watching movies. Okay? So let me tell you how great you are at watching movies. Imagine a theater-going experience, beginning to end. Okay? Before you even decide to go see a movie, you've read up or heard about the movie. Okay? You've possibly read some reviews, so you have an idea what kind of movie it is. Is it a romantic comedy? Is it an action movie? Is it drama? What is it? You have an idea what that is. You know the actors that are in it. And some of these may be your favorite actors, so you're really looking forward to it. Maybe it's a director that you like. maybe you're familiar with the screenwriters, you know, and the previous movies you've enjoyed, so you know something about the movie. And you know that by going to the theater, you're going to have a good time. Now, you're also very smart in that before going to the theater, you already know that having been there before, you know, sometimes the air conditioning is pretty powerful in the theater, and therefore it will be smart for you to dress in layers. And once you get there, you planned it out so that you go there a little earlier. And that is because when you do that, several reasons. Well, you can grab a good seat to maximize your experience, you know, get the best sound possible. You got your favorite seats, you know, maybe it's a little further in the back or in the center, you know. You know exactly where you will get the best experience out of watching a movie. By going there a little earlier, you can catch the sneak preview, you know, the trailers that builds up a sense of excitement. And you also have time to visit the concession stands, get your popcorn, get your soda. And you're also very smart that a few minutes before everything is supposed to start, you make a pit stop. You are anticipating that when you watch the movie, you don't want any interruptions, like when nature calls. So you time it so well that you get back, you find your seat again, you sit down, and in just a few minutes, the lights begin to dim. And once the movie begins, your attention is on the movie. You're totally involved in it. That's the one thing, is to watch that frame that's in front of you at any particular moment. And that is how good you are at watching movies. Now, I have just explained how the best way would be to live your life as an exercise of the one thing, that you start out knowing something about life. You learn about the Tao, you read up about it, you figure out what kind of life this is going to be, you figure out that there's going to be a happy ending, and the actors that are in it, well, those are the people who are in your life, and some of them are your favorite actors. And for a movie that is your life, you get to be the main character, you also get to be the director and the screenwriter. You have a say in how the movie goes. And to enjoy this movie that is life, you know that you want to show up on time. You know that you don't want to miss out. You don't want to be the people that show up like 10 minutes into a movie. What did I miss? What did I miss? Okay? They aren't getting the full effect of the entire theater-going experience. If you are not respecting time in life, you are missing out on the full experience of life. And as the movie of your life is playing, you are focusing on it. You've already made your preparations. You've got your popcorn, you've got your soft drinks, you've made the pit stop, you know you will not be interrupted. You can focus on this one thing. So the individual frames of the movie that is your life is present moment awareness, is focusing on the here and now. That's the one thing that you have to focus on. And when the movie is over, you can be sure that it was a positive experience for yourself, that you've gained the optimal enjoyment out of that particular movie. So use your expertise in watching a movie and apply that expertise to focus on the one thing that is your life. Next time, I'm going to go over these characters with you. I-kuan Dao. You can tell why I want to do that, because that first character means one. For now, let me give you today's summary. So there are basically two things you have to do, and they're both about the one thing. So the first bullet, ask yourself, why do I exist? Why am I here? What is the one big thing for me in life? So my two advice, number one, to dig as deeply as you can, to go deeper, to get at the essence. Sometimes the essence of your life is buried very deeply. And the second bullet, and this is not something that the authors have mentioned because they don't really know this part, but think not in terms of what you enjoy doing the most, but what will be the greatest good to other people. And then when you explore in that direction, you will be able to tie it back into what you enjoy. Then lastly, this is what I like to ask. I'd like you to ask yourself this one question today. What is the one thing for me today? Then every day going forward, I want to challenge you to put the same question to yourself. What is the one thing for me today? What is the one thing that I need to focus on? Now, and what if you say, well, by 10 o'clock in the morning, I've accomplished my one thing. That's okay. You will not run out of the one thing that you need to focus on. Once you are done with the one particular thing, you can be sure that there will be another one thing that you need to focus on. But you want to start with that question. What is the one thing? So out of that very last line in chapter 21, with this, I want you guys to focus on this, the one thing. And that's it for today. Let's do the meeting ending ritual, everybody. 起立，面向佛堂，持下三鞠躬，一鞠躬，再鞠躬，三鞠躬，持下各位点传师一鞠躬，结班一鞠躬。Okay, thanks everybody. We are all done.